And once talking about the Chicago Bulls defense, I said, I don't see much room for improvement overall in the course of the season for the Chicago Bulls. Over the last 5 games, the Bulls have really made their offense not just great, not just efficient, but damn near excellent. We're going to talk about the play over Nikola Vucevic, Buzelis, and Ayo Dosunmu over the last 3 to 5 games and really kind of diagnose how good can this Bulls offense be. We're going to talk about all that plus a little bit more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. Last night, Nikola Vucevic had himself a game. Honestly, probably one of the better statistical games in his Chicago Bulls tenure overall. When you look at the 39 points he scored on 22 shots, 16 of 22 from the field, Vuce just had an extremely efficient offensive night. But it hasn't just really been that. When you look at really the last 5 games for Nikola Vucevic, 26 points per game, 10.4 rebounds, 62% shooting from the field, 48% shooting from 3, and a 72 true shooting percentage. Nikola Vucevic hasn't just been a good player for the Chicago Bulls. At times, he's been the engine of the Chicago Bulls. Last night's game, as a matter of fact, when the San Antonio Spurs started going on a little bit of run to get that lead down, we saw that the Bulls started pivoting and working around Nikola Vucevic, and that's what really helped. Now, Ayo Dosunmu, we're going to talk about Ayo here at the end of this segment, but overall, like, the play of Nikola Vucevic, he's not just playing good. He's regained an all-star level play over the course of the season, and it's hard to deny just how good Nikola Vucevic has been this season for the Chicago Bulls. 22 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, 59% shooting on the year. He is top 10 in the league of efficiency when it comes to shooting. He's shooting 46% from 3, taking almost 5 3-pointers per game. Vuce is balling right now. And that is why, a lot of things start pivoting to trade conversation around Nikola Vucevic, because you have a 34-year-old player putting together one of his best statistical seasons, and at this point, he's an expiring contract next year. So, yes, the Bulls are going to try to strike while it's hot. That's a story for another day. But I think we do need to spend some time really acknowledging just how much Vuce has worked for this team. And it's not even just with the scoring either. When you look at it as well, Vuce is averaging 3.5 assists per game. And while that's not a huge amount if you're talking about guards, that's a really good amount for a center that's having as much to carry on the Bulls' offense as what it is. On yesterday's Locked On Bulls, I talked about the fact that the Bulls really don't have a bag in the half court. They just don't, right? And I talked about you may need to use Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic to kind of unlock that half court offense. And Vuce has been a key part when things need to settle down for Vuce. It's been the big man that's calmed it down. He's shooting the best true shooting percentage by far of his career, 68.7% on the season. Now, while we still got a lot of games left to be played, when you look at it, the only other time that Vuce was higher than that was the 2022-23 season when it was a 59 true shooting percentage. He almost has 10% better than that. That's how good Nikola Vucevic is playing right now. But the usage rate is technically down year over year. Has a lower usage than what he did last year. That's how much Vuce has refined his game right now. And, again, that's why you're going to see him be in a lot of trade talks. It's why you're going to see maybe the Bulls try to strike while the value's high. And I get it. Vuce is having a great season. And like I've told many Bulls fans before, I'm not saying, whatever the Bulls do is what the Bulls do. But you have to understand, if the Bulls do move on from Vuce, why that's happening. For so long, we've talked about how this team does not strike where players' value is high. We've talked about it way too often, right? And if they know, because I'd hate to get to the point where he's an expiring contract, and much like DeMar, we're trying to do a sign and trade where we could have moved him at the trade deadline if we know we're going to let him walk regardless, right? So that's why I get it. I understand. It sucks to look at a player having their best year in your jersey and say, hey, yeah, it's time we move that guy. Like, that sucks, right? Because we're finally getting the Vuce that we thought that we were going to get, right? When he was coming off that all-star year. And this goes back to where AK and Eversley failed. And this is not a knock on DeMar DeRozan. I understand why you got a player like DeMar. I want to be clear here. But when you got DeMar, and you looked at the fact that he started his offense at the same place Vooch likes to get his spots at, what did you expect, right? What did you expect? Yes, Vooch became more of a three-point shooter, more of a spot-up shooter, because the places that Vooch likes to get in rhythm, and I think that's something we overlook, is how players get in rhythm. Not just when they get in rhythm and what they do when they're in rhythm, how do they get in rhythm? And Vooch gets in rhythm through high posts, pick and rolls, those type of things, post and dives. That's where he really gets in his bag offensively. And we were able to see that last night. And the Bulls also identified when to get Vooch the ball when he had a mismatch. And that was the special thing about last night for the Chicago Bulls and Vooch's play overall. And let's hope that it continues and we just see this player continue to develop because, listen, Vooch is playing great right now. He's playing out of his mind. And we'll see what that leads to in February, if it leads to a move at the trade deadline for Vooch. But another player that's starting to flash their potential, and I'm sandwiching here between the talk about Vooch and Ayo. Let's believe we're going to get to Ayo Dosunmu. Buzelis, after many Bulls fans called out, complained, called Billy Donovan the carpet, all these type of things over not playing the young rookie Buzelis in a season where we talked about development being the key. Modest has been balling. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at it over the course, he had a 2-point game in that this brought the averages down. Over the last 3 games, Buzelis is averaging 11.1 points per game. He's doing that in only 15 minutes per game. He's also averaging 4.7 rebounds per game. He's shooting the ball 63% from the field and 66% from three-point range. Modest is right now playing some amazing basketball. And you have to appreciate what Buzelis has been able to do at this time. Now, I want him to hit the free throws a little bit better, right? The turnovers are also down. That's another thing about a young big. The turnovers are down. The fouls are down. He's still averaging 2 per game, but there was a point where he was averaging almost 4 per game. Those things are going in the right direction. And finally, Billy Donovan seems like he's woken up to, hey, if I just play this young rook, this is what we can get out of him, right? And they're using him in a specialized way in the fact that he's just able to go out there and do the things that are coming natural to him. And even if you take that out into the last 5 games, he's at 9.8 points per game on 54% shooting, 44% shooting from 3. Still the 4 rebounds per game that he's still getting. He's almost getting a block per game as well. Like, he is playing really, really good basketball right now. And you love seeing that from a rookie who also has a positive plus minus. And I know that it came, and we'll see what happens with Modest. I'll be waiting. If anything's announced, I highly doubt he's probably playing in tonight's game unless it's not a broken nose. He's probably going to miss tonight's game. But as soon as that's officially announced, I will get an episode out. When news drops, I drop. It's very simple around here. But overall, Modest is having a really, really good stretch here, and it's up to him to continue to capitalize on it. And I hope that whatever happens with his nose after catching the elbow in the face, that it doesn't really distract him. And I don't think it will, right? Once he's cleared, I think Modest is still going to just be Modest. I don't get the impression from Buzelis that he's going to be a player that comes out and plays timid by any stretch of the imagination, because Buzelis is all motor. He's all engine. And once he starts playing with a little bit of rhythm, things really do change for Buzelis. And I understand a lot of Bulls fans are saying, Patrick Williams, look out for your starting spot, whatever it is. Oh, should he be playing over Julian Phillips? All that, it'll come when it comes. What I'm excited about, and said this last night on the post-game show as well, I'm excited about getting Patrick Williams to actually play with Buzelis. Having a combo of Modest, Patrick Williams, Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, who Dalen can play the 2 or the 3, but those other 3 guys can play the 3 or the 4 to really kind of play mismatch, right? Mix and match with those guys. It's gonna be fun. Like, to have young, versatile forwards, that's where the NBA is going. And while the Bulls have really modernized their offense, we'll get more on that in a second, like, you also have to modernize your personnel. And these are the 3 players that definitely can push the Bulls personnel, the roster, into the modern age. Having those versatile forwards, I'll tell you what, Buzelis isn't a good defender yet. You still see the things on ball with Buzelis, some off ball things. When you look at the block shots that he has, those type of things, like, he has good timing on weak side and help defense. That on ball defense, off ball defense on his man also has to get a little bit better. But overall, I think that it will. Like I said, Modest has the type of mentality that I think at some point in this league, he's going to be like, hey, listen, you're not going to cook me, right? Yeah, I'm going to give you some work on the offensive side of the ball, but you think it's going to be light work over here when I'm on defense, you're tripping. I do trust he's going to eventually get that, because he just has too much of that dog in him, right? So it's going to get there at some point. But I think overall, like, Buzelis and this growth that we've seen from him, you just got to keep it seeing. And It's real unfortunate that he got hit in the face, but once he gets back there on the court, if he is even off again, I don't want to worry anybody. It could very well be that it was just a hard hit. Nothing's actually structurally wrong with his nose, and he's going to be good to go. But with how bad it looked, I wouldn't be surprised if Modest Buzelis woke up with some serious bruising on his face. But we'll see what happens there. But Modest Buzelis is having a really, really nice stretch here, and he's just continuing playing better and better. And that's what you just want to get out of your young rook, is just continually play better and better and better. And then talking about somebody else who's playing better and better and better, Ayo Dosunmu. Ayo Dosunmu. Let me say it again. Ayo, the Nigerian nightmare, Dosunmu. Listen, triple-double last night. Great to see. Great to see that from Ayo and just what he's been able to do. But then when you look at the last few games for Ayo Dosunmu as well, Ayo is cooking. Over the last 5 games, right, he's averaging 18 points per game. He's doing that on 59% shooting. He's also shooting the ball 36% from three, which is kind of getting back to where he kind of was last year, where he was a 40% three-point shooter. We need him to get back as close to that as possible. He's also averaging 5.4 assists, 4 rebounds, 1.5 steals per game, only 1 turnover per game as well over that time. Ayo Dosunmu is starting to get back to the Ayo that we thought we were going to get after how last season finished for Ayo Dosunmu, and that is where you want to be, right? And so Ayo, whose averages as well, like his season averages, he's getting right back to where he was last year. He's now averaging 12.7 points per game, which is actually higher than what he averaged last year at 12.2. He's now shooting the ball 49% from the field. Remember, for a while this season, it was in the 30s. Now, he's also gotten his three-point shooting percentage up to 30% on threes so far this season. That's good to see. He's averaging more rebounds than last year, more assists than last year as well, right at the same number of steals. Ayo Dosunmu has finally woken up. And I did feel like it was a slow start for Ayo Dosunmu. I really did feel like it was a slow start. And he has continually shown and proven like, hey, this Bulls team may need to start Ayo Dosunmu. And again, I don't expect Billy Donovan to make any changes to the starting lineup until a trade is made or injuries happen and things like that. But I think that Ayo is showing himself that he's better as a starter. Like it may just be that simple for Ayo Dosunmu that he's just better as a starter. And sometimes you can overthink things like that for him. When you look at Ayo as a starter this year, he started 10 games so far for the Bulls this season. He's shooting the ball 54%, 34 from the field, 34% from three, 4 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game, 1 steal per game, and 16 points per game as a starter. That is kind of aligned with what he did as a starter last season. Ayo Dosunmu, because of his versatility both offensively and defensively, because now the Bulls are playing a style as well that is more conducive to how good he plays in transition. I tell you what, Ayo was attacking the rim. The three-point shot starting to come back around for him as well. Ayo Dosunmu's playing really well, and I would not be surprised. I don't know if he's going to get the three-point shot back up to what it was last season. I know that we're only 23 games into the season, but you got to shoot 40% from the field. You got to shoot really good for the entirety of the season. But we'll see if he gets back to 40% from three. But overall, his three-point shot's improving. His pace is improving. His understanding's everything that you see about Ayo on the basketball court is getting better day after day. And that's all you can ask for from a player like Ayo. I love what we're seeing and what we're getting from Ayo. It's been great to watch, and his ascent has right along traveled with the team's ascent as well. And that's what makes this thing really special overall. When you look at the Bulls, right, and this is going to transition us to our next topic. When you look at the Bulls for the last 5 games, I want to be clear in looking at this because, again, I was the guy that said, I don't know how much the Bulls are really going to be able to prove. Now, it's not against better competition. And that's the thing that we always have to work and look at as well, that when you look at over the last 5 games, it's not like the Bulls are necessarily facing off against some of the best teams in the league. But, again, the Bulls are their level of competition, taking care of business where they can take care of business. When you look at the Bulls' last 5 opponents, we're talking about San Antonio, Brooklyn, Boston, Orlando, and Washington. And the 2 games against Orlando and Boston, the better teams on that schedule, were both losses. So the Bulls are 3-5 in their 3-2 in their last 5, but those 3 wins have come against Washington, Brooklyn, and the San Antonio Spurs team without Wemby. So that's just, again, like to talk about it and frame everything, right? But when you look at it right now, the Bulls are playing so much better basketball. In the last 5 games of the season, they have a net rating of positive 8.2, which puts them at 7th in the NBA. They have an offensive rating of 123.7, second in the NBA. Their defensive rating has got up to 19th. Remember, I said if the Bulls defense can just get to where it was last year as far as efficiency, we're the 21st ranked team in the league. We're 115 defensive rating today. The lower number is the better number. That is really good. Last 5 games. The team is shooting 64% true shooting percentage, which is first in the NBA. We're shooting a 62% effective field goal shooting percentage, first in the NBA. That is really good when it comes down to it as well. Assist percentage, 64% of our buckets are assisted. And we got our turnover percentage down to 14, which is 8th in the NBA. We're getting 52% of the rebounds out there on the court. 80% of the defensive rebounds. That's fourth best in the NBA as well. Like the Bulls right now are playing really freaking good offense. Really good offense. And the defense has gone from in the toilet to slightly below mid. And that's where it comes down to. If this Bulls defense can consistently be mid to slightly below mid, it really could help this team drastically. When you compare that to the season numbers, right? So we have a positive net rating right now of 8.2 over our last 5 games. Last 10 games is still positive, but it's 0.7 smaller margin there. But on the course of the season, negative 2.6. We have an offensive rating of 115.8 as well over the course of the season. Our defensive rating is 118 on the season. So again, we've improved our defensive rating by 3 points, and it's taken us from being at the bottom of the league to slightly below mid. On the season, though, the Bulls are shooting a 67 true shooting percentage, 57% effective field goal shooting percentage. Those are both third best in the league. 66% assist percentage as well. But so the question that we have to ask, and you guys know I'm always going to ask the real questions, is have the Bulls really improved, or is it just because they're playing against the lesser competition? That's the question that it comes down here, and that's what the Bulls have to ask themselves as they're trying to figure out what the next phase of this team is. When people ask, all right, now with the winning streak, do the Bulls actually look to keep their pieces and add to the team rather than trade pieces off? You can't allow a hot streak to kind of make you overlook that. The Bulls have been really, really good offensively. But I think when you face off against some of the better teams defensively, you still don't have enough in the tank. You're going to win some games against the bottom feeders. And that may be the problem with the Bulls keeping their pick, because they're going to win some games against the bottom teams in the league, right? They're going to be able to compete with those teams. And so we'll see what the future holds for the Chicago Bulls. But overall, it's just a question that a lot of people have been asking, and I wanted to talk about it and bring it up just to kind of evaluate what could happen there. We'll see where this Bulls team ends up going. But with that said, last couple of topics before we get out of here. Billy Donovan is the lone coach left in major Chicago sports. When you look at it, Matt Eberflus, Bears, gone. Luke Richardson, Blackhawks, gone. David Ross, Cubs, gone. Pedro with the Sox, gone, right? Even Frank Kapalis, Chris Puccini, and Teresa Weatherspoon, all the major Chicago sports have fired their head coach, Billy. Billy Donovan is the last head coach standing in Chicago sports, right? Everybody else is falling. And people keep asking, how much longer is Billy going to stay around? And the question that I have to ask, the answer that I have for that is, as long as the Reinsdorfs want him to be. And I know that may be a simple answer, but listen, Billy Donovan, there's been no indication that Billy Donovan's seat is even remotely hot. And so because of that, it doesn't seem like Billy Donovan is going to be out of here anytime soon. If Billy Donovan leaves, it is because the Bulls trade Vooch. It's because they trade Zach LaVine. And Billy Donovan once again goes to a front office and says, hey, listen, I don't really want to go through a rebuild. Now, one could say that the Bulls necessarily aren't that far off. Like, if you get the right talent in this draft, if they do end up keeping their pick, they could be right there competing for playing spots, and that's where Billy Donovan would like to be at as a coach. So, Billy Donovan being the last man standing isn't too surprising or shocking, but it does just put a highlight on the fact of how much Billy Donovan does have an in with this front office and this ownership group. And because of that, it doesn't seem like Billy Donovan's going to be leaving anytime soon. And so I wanted to talk about that because a lot of people have brought up how much change has happened in Chicago sports with some of the other coaches around. And Billy Donovan is the last guy standing, the last coach standing in Chicago sports. And we'll see how much longer that's going to take. Now, the Bulls do have a game tonight again against the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers are riding a 4-game losing streak into this game against Chicago. They were coming off a 3-game winning streak before losing these 4 games. And the Indiana Pacers are more susceptible than what they ever have been. Tyrese Halliburton, it's like he has not woken up at all this season. And we got to have a real conversation on, is it time to be worried about Tyrese Halliburton? Because I think that it is. 41% from the field, 33% from threes, averaging 17. He's gotten up to 17 points. But when you just watch Tyrese Halliburton, he's a player that isn't in rhythm, seems like he's not playing with confidence, and he just feels like a player that's just off their game. And we haven't always seen that from Tyrese Halliburton. He was one of the reasons that people looked at this team as a team that really was on the uptick. Now, they got some other pieces going around there, right? You got Pascal Siakam in there, right? He's leading the league in scoring. Ben Mathurin coming back healthy now this season is averaging 18 points per game. He's been really good for you. But this Pacers team is still missing something. Now, they still have some size, right? And this still can be a difficult matchup. I mean, the Bulls have allowed teams to get in rhythm against them before. So while, Aaron Naismith is out, things like that, but overall, this team has to be locked in. Much like they were locked in offensively last night against the Spurs, the Bulls got to take advantage. They're not going to have the size advantage like they have in some other games. But Vooch and Miles Turner, they can go to work. But backing up Miles Turner is basically Jarace Walker or Obi Toppin. So, the Vooch is still going to have some opportunities. Him and Jalen Smith are going to have opportunities where they have the most size out there. How do they take advantage of that? That's going to be the question here for these guys. And let's hope that they can, right? This is a game that is another winnable game for the Chicago Bulls. It does start the Bulls off on their first 3-game homestand of the season where you face them, Philly, and Charlotte all back-to-back. Well, not back-to-back, but all over the next 3 games. We got Friday, Sunday, and then we don't play again until next Friday. So the Bulls are going to have some time off. I want to see that. And that may be where, if Modest Buzelis does have a serious nose injury, they may hold him out until next Friday, give him a week off. Just thought about that. So we'll see what happens over that time. We'll see how the Bulls lock in today. Let's hope that they can, and then they can get prepared because, we're going to need all hands on deck tonight against this Pacers team because while this Pacers team has been disappointing this season, at 9-14, let's keep in mind, the Bulls are still the Chicago Bulls, and they can surprise us with a bad loss any given night. So let's hope that that's not the case tonight. Let's hope the Bulls can get a dub. That's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.